Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about astrology and the death of Amy Winehouse. Some of you may have remembered she was a very prolific singer. She had died in 2011, and there was maybe some debate and controversy over how she passed away. Her brother, I believe, seemed like he was adamant that it was more attributed to bulimia. She had some disease, she was bulimic, my understanding on that. And another thing was there was I guess it was a coroner that had determined it was some kind of inadvertent alcohol poisoning, overdose or something. And then you have then initially they said it was some alcohol over the legal limit. So the thing about it is, I'm looking at her chart. Okay, she had a Sun in Virgo, Moon in Capricorn, and Gemini ascendant. And I've talked about in previous videos how Gemini in Virgo, at least I believe, as far as Gemini and Virgo go, they can go. It's being ruled by Mercury. A lot of these people seem to come and go like the wind, sadly. You have other people that were very prominent and renowned. You had Patrick Swayze, Virgo ascendant, passed away at a relatively early age, like 57 or 58. I think it was due to pancreatic cancer, if I'm not mistaken. Kobe Bryant was likely a Virgo sun, and he died in a helicopter crash in his early 40s. Then you have Kurt Cobain, a Virgo ascendant, had passed away, like 27 years old. And the thing is, again, she's a Virgo sun and Gemini rising. She has the Moon in Capricorn, which of course is in its detriment, and can be, as far as having, melancholy, despondent, feelings. She also has Neptune conjunct her Moon in her chart, and right there, that could be, you're talking about issues with food. Now, by itself, Moon in Capricorn, and I'm not saying that this manifests every way, but Moon, keep in mind, Moon can be associated with food and the stomach, and Capricorn is restriction and limitation. She has the Moon at 0 degrees Capricorn, which of course is a critical degree, so it could make it more pronounced and prominent. The fact that it conjuncts Neptune, Neptune can be about dissolving, dissipation, but it's also, so in its own way, it's like an indicator of dissolving food in your own way, having less food, going away from it. Neptune rules escapism. It's like the food, Moon conjunct Neptune in this case, perhaps that manifested in the escaping of food, in this case from the body. And another thing that I'm noticing too now in her chart, she has the Sun squaring her Neptune in her natal chart. When you have the Sun in adverse aspect to Neptune, the way I look at that, that could really be, it's an adversarial aspect, that drugs are more of an adversary than in most situations. On average, I would say Neptune is also in the house of open enemies, in the 7th house. Another thing too is that the fact she's got Gemini rising, that is, of course, dominates the physical body and appearance in astrology, and that tells me that maybe what it was is she just was not like, Gemini rising can be very youthful in appearance, and maybe this was something where she just couldn't appear youthful enough. This bulimia, she likely was trying to stay at a certain weight. Now, bulimia can be consistently at a normal weight, but everybody's perception of normalcy is obviously going to be different. Another thing, what I'm looking at in her chart as well, is that the ruler of the 8th house of death, Saturn, because she has Capricorn on the cusp of the 8th house, the ruler is Saturn. It falls in her 6th house of diet. So it's not surprising she may have likely died due to her diet, or really a lack of. Basically, when you have the ruler of the eighth house in the sixth, it could also be an indicator in some cases of a death by debilitating illness or some kind of sickness. I have the ruler of the eighth house in my sixth house in my chart, so it's likely there's a greater propensity for me passing away due to some kind of chronic debilitation or sickness. Now, that ruler Saturn in her chart, it makes a conjunction to Pluto, so that could give more obsessive and compulsive energy in connection with this eating situation, her diet situation, or what have you. Another thing I'm noticing too in her chart is that she has Venus. Venus is in Leo in the fourth house. I have that same place in my chart, but she has hers retrograde. Now, Venus could reflect the foods we like to indulge in and enjoy. Retrograde is going the other way. It's almost like, in this case, an extreme negative manifestation of food going away from the person, rejecting this. And being in Leo, maybe it was some kind of extravagant, flamboyant type of exquisite meals she may have been eating, the ones that were very extravagant and expensive. The fact that Mars is conjunct it also is more of an indicator of some physical related issue of it. Also, Mars gives more energy in this and very action oriented. Mars is also very impulsive. Mars can be like Jupiter in the sense of the enthusiasm and exuberance. It might have been something, maybe I mean, I hate to say this and sound derogatory, but maybe there was some enjoyment of this. And the fourth house can also be connected with the stomach because it corresponds with the zodiac sign Cancer. Now, another thing that I'm seeing in this, and now as far as, on this, at the time of her passing, that transit Mercury was also appears to be conjunct her natal Venus, or at least very close to it, and there may have been some communication regarding this matter, perhaps with her disease with bulimia and the rejection of food. Being in Leo, it's something that was more garnering more attention, I would say, as well. Now, another thing she has, as far as a transit goes, she had Mars in Gemini transiting her first house. My understanding is she had some like emphysema, some issues with her lungs, at least like in 2008 she did. She may have still had it in 2011 when she passed away. When you have transit Mars hitting your first house, that could manifest in some physical issues and debilitations associated with the sign, because Mars can be about physical problems, and whether it's injury or just general physical related matters. And it was also not far from her natal North Node in Gemini, so that could reflect issues that one may have to confront and address, because when you have the North Node being involved in a transit, it could reflect issues that one may have to address or confront. Now, another thing too that I'm seeing in her chart is the fact that she also has Mercury retrograde conjunct her Sun in Virgo in the fifth house of entertainment. Now, the way this may manifest is having, of course, Mercury in Virgo is a great placement. I mean, probably her thinking is likely very analytical, methodical, systematic, but could also be critical. The fact that it's retrograde may have been self-critical, manifest in being self-critical in conjunct her Sun, the physical body. Now, I understand the ascendant is, again, what dominates the appearance in the physical body, but the Sun can play a role as well. And the Sun being in healthy Virgo, maybe she just didn't feel she was always appearing healthy enough to others, and this is what she wanted to appear, being on stage and performing, since this falls in the fifth house of entertainment and extroversion. So, and also fifth house is personal popularity as well. Now, another thing is she has in her sixth house in her chart, she has 4 planets in it. When you have, the more planets you have in the sixth house, it seems like it can increase the propensity, proclivity for health-related matters. Having Uranus in this mix could be one of an unusual, enigmatic nature. And the fact that she has Jupiter conjunct her Uranus in this is that she has that can inflate and exacerbate those issues. I've stated in previous videos, Jupiter could be very paradoxical. It could be very strongly benign and benevolent, but it could also have a tendency to enlarge and expand, and might have expanded those kind of issues. Another thing I found very bizarre in her chart, and this is the first time I've ever seen or at least taken notice of something like this in an astrological chart. Okay, there's 10 planets in the chart, obviously. And in the chart, the 10 planets have 5 groupings of conjunctions, 5 pairs of conjunctions. That's where her planets are set up. She has Mars conjunct Venus, Sun conjunct Mercury, Pluto conjunct Saturn, Jupiter conjunct Uranus, and Neptune conjunct Pluto. It's very bizarre for me to see something like this. And the thing about this is the fact that these planets are so, they're so closely bunched together. The first, when you have the planets on the ends of the pattern, she has, the Mars at 20 degrees Leo, and then Moon in Capricorn at 0 degrees. When you have all these planets confined in a relatively small, a small area, it tells me that she likely was able to focus very strongly and be able to block out a lot of extraneous type of things. And she was also stated as being very versatile, I believe, on Wikipedia, and that, of course, that's Gemini rising, I believe, coming out, and that's, of course, what you're going to see on a first impression from somebody. Sun in Virgo, Moon in Capricorn are very strongly about their work and career, and the fact that she really, the ascendant is what's going to flavor that energy. It's going to show how the manner or the style you go about in perhaps attaining these the sun basic wants, the moon emotional needs, and of course being a Gemini rising, very animated, vivacious, and through versatility by being able to do many different things. Hold on a moment, people. There's really not much more I want to say about this then, but the only other thing that I noticed at this time, as far as a transit goes, is that she had Mercury, the North Node, not far from her natal Neptune at this time. When you're talking about the North Node, I know it wasn't conjunct as far as a transit goes, but shortly before that, it was conjunct her Neptune. And when you're talking about transits again with the North Node, they can be about issues one may have to address or confront. Neptune, it can be about addictions, drugs, alcohol. Being in Sagittarius could be on a very large scale as well. And another thing is that she had transit South Node in Gemini, not far from her Gemini ascendant. The ascendant again is the physical body. It can be our vitality, our energy, and when the South Node is involved in a transit and it's hitting like our ascendant or Sun or even Mars, that could be about manifesting going away from that vitality, from that energy. If transit South Node hits the Sun in one's chart, that could be an indicator of the life passing, or a certain kind of life one's living is passing. But when it's the ascendant is comparable because the ascendant is about our vitality, about our energy in the physical body. And sadly, this may have been another indicator of her passing at this time. Transit Pluto was conjunct the 8th house cusp at the time she had passed away. And transit Pluto, when you're talking about it by the 8th house, it could be a very dangerous time for people, because Pluto is about death, and the 8th house is connected with that. The 8th house is associated with crisis, and the thing about it is Pluto is also could be associated with toxins. And the thing is, alcohol by itself may not be seen as something toxic or drugs, but if you do it, persistently and for enough time, this is something that could actually manifest in that, in something that could be quote unquote poisonous. I would say, at least that's how I perceive it. So, anyways, really not much more wanted to get at as far as transits and natal placements in her chart that might have been tied in to her passing. And anyway, and again, it's just that when you hear about these things about people that pass away, it's such an early life, especially when there was so much unfulfilled potential for these people, and there's no telling what they would have done if they actually had lived and survived. So anyway, people. Well, actually, I am gonna say one more thing. So I got one more thing to do. Say is that transit Pluto was not far from her moon at the time of her passing, and Pluto can be about our obsessions, things that are compulsive, and and the moon is it can be about our food, the stomach. It might even be connected, I would say, with eating. So it tells me that there was it not being transit Pluto being not far from her moon at this time tells me that these issues with her food or eating habits might have been more destructive at this time, more so than ever, and more compulsive and more obsessive. Anyway, people, now that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.